Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball podcast. In this 20th episode, I'm actually going to be interviewing Allyn Thomas, a longtime player in the Northwest, entering his third elite season. Allyn, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Happy to see if I can get to know you a little bit more. Definitely appreciated your time with the Seattle Classic recaps. So let's go ahead and get started. Why don't you go ahead and just give yourself a full introduction and the team you currently play for.
Hi, yeah, happy to be back, Steve. Thank you. I had a lot of fun on that classic recap, and happy to join you again. As you said, my name's Allyn. I play dodgeball in the Northwest. I've been playing for quite a long time. I entered elite in 2015, round 2. Palm Springs was my debut in an elite competition, and I've played for Reignbros the entire time.
Palm Springs, okay, I want to say that checks out. Like, I would know you better than your own showing and debut, but I got more comments on that one, so I'm just going to notate that for later. So Reignbros, right? Why Reignbros? Where'd the name come from, and what was your inspiration behind it?
Well, there's a few things that played into that. So I'd watched a lot of film on Elite. As soon as we kind of heard what it was from Brandon Cook, and he wanted us to come play, I started looking into the teams that were playing, and I started noticing that they're all really boring as far as like style. That they don't really have a lot of color. It's all these metal names like Titan and Doom and Rise and Deathball, and I probably noticed Team Evil at the time. Like it was mostly all red or black. Like Rise had the gray. Titan at the time had like the white with the lightning bolt cut in the yellow. Which was okay. I kind of liked those back in the day, but Deathball was it was just like a skull. So my primary thing for us was to get something that could be colorful. So we stood out, and also just so that it didn't all seem like a bunch of, thrasher metalheads playing dodgeball against each other. Reign, the REIGN is a longtime kickball team that Sean played on, the travel kickball team, as well as local, the Reign Makers. So, just kept that in. Reign, having the rainbow theme gave us a great excuse to pull in a lot of color, make ourselves more interesting and catch the eye. Eventually it just became Reignbros. I'm not really sure. Lucas was a super big fan of it. But he designed our early shirts. The early shirt rainbow was just a striped rainbow red down, and we had our name on our favorite color on the back. That was kind of the first iteration, and then did a couple other just kind of T-shirts type designs, and now we're big time.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, I would not have made that connection. I do know that black is like the go-to for a lot of the dodgeball jerseys and colors, and so I was actually really, really proud of Titan going away from the typical black and using what was like a yellowish gold color with white. Actually, I was very against it at first, but it came out pretty good, and it was good to have variety. And then, kudos to their new look. White and blue looks really good, and I owe a lot of apologies to Justin Acton for saying baby blue and white will never work. But that's just my limited color scheme understanding. When I was with Evil, when we had Evil, I should say, black and white was the easiest way to go. But yeah, I had no idea that you were looking at changing the scene visually. That's kind of cool. Because you kind of pointed on something, and this is why I wanted to bring you back, and why I was really grateful to have you with the Seattle Classic, is like, it seems like you really do your homework. You said you were watching Elite footage before you guys even entered an Elite tournament?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I could compete. Elite's a big deal, and also traveling for it with legal headshots and things like that. If I didn't think I could hang and we had a chance, there's probably not a chance I would have came. So, I had to look into it a little beforehand. I had to figure out what was going on, watch the footage, and these guys don't throw much harder than me. We've got Sean and Lucas on the team. Not a lot of people throw much harder than them. So, when we have good utility players, me and Ricky are really strong, kind of can be anywhere on the court. So that was the first thing, was make sure that if we decide to do this, we're not going to get embarrassed. But once that was pretty clear not to be the case, it was to learn what teams did, So before we came in, we knew the burden ball was a big deal. Everyone threw it kind of the same way, and so we changed that. Actually, there's a very in my dodgeball career, there's a pivotal conversation after that Palm Springs tournament was a 2-day tournament, and we seeded 5th, I think, in open. And Davey came up to us and he's like, "You guys are Davey Blake." He's like, "You guys are, you're getting it. You're playing really good." And one thing he mentioned, he's like, "You got to learn to throw that burden ball." And we're just looking at him like, "Sure, yeah, man, definitely. We'll throw the burden ball every time." And then we don't throw the burden ball every time. And now teams don't throw the burden ball. It's come, I think, a little more common. And it was a big deal for us to come out and just not telegraph who was throwing every time.
Yeah, I think if like another team that had been established started doing that, it wouldn't have been such a big deal. But I think you would expect a new team coming in, they're going to throw the burden ball. And if you see them like, "Oh man, this team's not throwing the burden ball, what are they doing?" But it's kind of a cool little like maneuver or trick that you guys had. I know that when we're looking at throwing, 3 balls and one of them's the burden ball, I tend to not throw that one because you guys are going to be watching that. So it's like what they expect. Unless it's somebody like Ketchum where, yeah, it doesn't matter if this guy throws the burden ball or not. You're going to be watching him regardless. So that's kind of a cool little change up. I wanted to talk about Palm Springs real quick because that's when I first heard about you guys. I know we were kind of talking about this offline. But so I missed the March 2016, to be established. Yeah, it was the 2016 Elite Tournament. And so from what I understood when I was with Titan, we didn't really have a strong showing. I don't know what we seeded or what we placed. But I was wondering if there's still a chance that we can potentially get top 3 or even come out of there with like a first place run and get those, coveted rings and whatnot. And when I was talking to Brett about it, he said it was like mathematically impossible. He had already done the numbers. He had already looked at, okay, you're going to look at Rise and Doom as number 1 and number 2, and maybe us 3, or maybe we would get a first place here and there, but something drastic would have to happen, right, for one of those 2 teams to just completely eat crap. And we're just like, well, dang, I guess that's never going to happen. And then, sure as crap, go figure, here comes Reignbros out of left field, I should say out of the Northwest, and you guys did us that solid. And I didn't make the Palm Springs tournament either, so I don't know what happened there. But that anomaly that we were kind of thinking would have to happen happened. So I was really curious, like where you guys came from. All I heard was this team from Oregon called the Reignbros came and just killed it. So that was my first like kind of experience of getting to know you guys. It's kind of funny how that happened. But real quick, was the Seattle Classic like your most competitive tournament prior to entering Elite, or?
I would say, yeah, we'd had, the Classic had been going on for years at that time. Let's see, so that would have been 2016. I'd played in 2 Classics at that point and come in 2nd and 4th. And just earlier that year, we had Fury come up with Pyan and Pat Guevara playing with them. So, that's a pretty darn good team. It was pretty interesting. I can tell you that just if that was all I knew about him, watching him play that day, I wouldn't have been as afraid of him, Pyan, that is. I think the longer throw line of the Classic hurt his game a little bit. And it's just because of the angle his ball comes out. If he has to put it at more distance, it's less scary. Less, it doesn't have quite the zip at 3 feet farther that, it has a close range. So, but it was an interesting tournament. So we played them that year, 2016. We played them in the quarterfinals, and they were the 3 seed, I think, and we were the 6 seed. And we took them out 3-0. We got up 3-0. They won a game, and then we won the 5th game, and it was pretty. It was pretty quick. But before that, we'd had an NDL pit stop in I think that was probably 2014, and it didn't go that well. I think it was open was 3 teams, so they did open no block, and then the women's had 3 teams, and then co-ed had something like 8 teams. And I'm pretty sure I registered personally, because I'm sure you remember NDL's archaic registration system. I personally registered 5 of those 14 teams that I just mentioned, just because it was such a pain in the butt. So I collected the money from everyone to bring this event to make sure that it was at least not too bad.
Man, you just brought up a memory I had buried deep in the recesses of NDL, and how you'd have to chase down every teammate for money. You had to fill out the form yourself, especially like per division, per team. That was a nightmare. So you had a tour stop though in 2014. They were still doing those.
I believe it was 2014. It might have been 13. I came back to competitive dodgeball. This question is going to come up later, but I came back to competitive dodgeball in 12 or 13, and I feel like it was during my second year back. So 13 or 14 is my memory says, but I'll find a photo and we'll throw it in the once this is posted.
So I will say the 2013 was like their last DWC. They claim a 2014 happened, and that might have just been like 12 people showing up. So it would have to be before. Well, no, I take that back. It could still be. We'll have to dig that up, as you said. But
so, yeah, I think. Sorry to cut you off there. I think
no
the last legitimate one that happened, Sean and Ricky went with Beaver Damnation, and they won against, I think, the Empire. So that was the last legitimate one with, more than 2 teams or 4 teams or whatever that I'd heard about. So those guys had experience, I guess, on that stage. That was, there was no rise there, but.
Okay, so that must have been 2014 then, because my last run with Damnation was 2013, and we didn't.
Okay.
We took second in several divisions. That's interesting. It's there's such like a curtain or a dark cloud around what happened in 2014. They just I remember it was like Facebook or the website said, "Oh, we had another successful 2014 DWC." I was like, "No, you didn't. I know you did not. Absolutely not." So let's kind of backpedal a little bit. You mentioned Brandon Cook. Was he kind of responsible for bringing you guys into Elite, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to open wounds for the guy, but he did. Yeah, he brought it to all of our attention. He put together a group of all of the players he thought were the best in Northwest. I'm actually not even sure I was put in that group. And they wanted everyone, wanted to organize a team. And then it just sort of happened that the guys who were putting our team together weren't a big fan of his play style. And he'd been seen at that point making some plays that were not the best. Not that he wasn't a quality player, but that just some of the plays he made, his head wasn't always in the game. And so they kind of put together a team behind him. And that was Lucas was part of that, Sean and Ricky, and I think I was the 4th of that group that was brought in. So,
gotcha. Well, I mean, I would say it all turned out well in the end. I mean, you guys came to the Elite Fray, and there's more of a Northwest showing now. So I guess on that level, it's pretty cool. But definitely,
and I would, to give credit to Brandon, he's come a long way. I mean, if we were putting together a team now, there's no doubt he would be on it.
Nice.
It was a different time,
Yeah, I mean, I can get into like my history with Titan not being on them anymore, and I think it's at some point the play style needs to match the players, and if you're out of it for so long, it just happens. So I can totally understand that, but at the same time, it's like you said, like maybe now he would be more relevant, but from what I've seen of him, I mean, he's definitely I want to say he got more conservative with his play, but I think I can understand a little bit of what you're talking about, because I got to see him play a little bit in 2012 and a little bit of 2013, and he just seemed like young and still kind of getting an understanding of what his style is going to be. But curious to see what it's going to look like in the future. But that's still pretty cool that he got you guys thinking Elite and all that whatnot. So let's go into like, how long have you been playing dodgeball? You kind of mentioned like you came back. So when did you first start playing?
Well, let's see. So I just turned 30, and I think I played my first time when I was 16, which would have been, what's that, 14 years ago, like 2004 approximately. So we had a league locally that still exists, Recess Time Sports, and they do kickball and dodgeball, ping pong. And my dad found out about it. So, I mean, this story I'm sure will come up, but my dad's a player still. He started playing, and he's just like, "Hey, dodgeball's really fun. Come play with me." I grew up playing sports, pretty much every sport with him. And so he's like, "Come play. We'll get you in. It doesn't matter." So he signed me up, as a 21-year-old, and we go to, we start playing, and I'm playing on a team called Cheaters, a bunch of pretty good players. And when I first started playing, man, I was rough. I was a good athlete. Like I've definitely always had the athletic ability. I could throw a ball. I could catch a ball. I could jump and dodge and duck. But I just was, I guess you would say I was kind of like Brandon used to be. Like I was just young, and the goal was to go up and throw a ball and hit someone with it, the strategy of the game and the nuances were lost on me until I kind of took some time off. I had some other life stuff, a long-term girlfriend, left for some forms of school. When I was about 25, 26, so it'd be about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 24. So Dan C., he may be familiar to a couple of the elite people. Him and his wife came down to try out for a WDBF a couple years back, and he met some people through that. He was a long-time pillar of Portland Dodgeball, and in his own right, a very good, smart captain, cerebral player. He didn't adjust very well to Burden when the Burden came here. His style was suited toward the individual ball count that we'd played for a long time. But he brought me back and brought players like Aldo, who you'll see play on Double Tap, Galen, who's on Portland Downpour, Nathaniel Guard, who plays on Downpour. He brought us all basically out of you played at some point and you had that talent and you're good, you're a good player. Come play on this competitive team and you'll get better together, and eventually, you'll be able to compete with our great team. So at the time, our competitive team section of our league, the league had like 40, 45 teams or something like that. And the competitive section was a good 10 or 12, solid competitive teams. And we just got smoked. Our first couple of seasons, we were terrible. That turned into Street Fighters, which in 2015 played in the Classic, my first Classic, and ended up getting second to Beaver Damnation. So I guess a year or two after you last played with them. But that was, that was a big growth to go from being just a kid who threw and had fun to coming back and being on a team where everyone's trying to buy in, but not everyone quite knows what they're doing yet, to eventually shedding, the guy that brought us all back off our team and having our own team and having success in our own right. So
nice, man. All kinds of questions are popping up. And I can only speak for myself. I'm totally guilty of, unfortunately, pegging Oregon and Washington as one place. And I had this problem with the Seattle Classic too. Thankfully, I don't think it translated, fortunately. But we're talking about Portland, right? Recess Time Sports is based in Portland.
Exactly.
Gotcha. So I remember, this is back in 2007, 2008, our first league in Tucson Dodgeball. And this one guy, he told us, hey, you should totally model this league after Portland because they have 30, 40, 50 teams, and it's this huge social thing. And that was kind of just before I heard about World Adult Kickball Association, WACA, and just the fact that people were kind of, I don't want to say cashing in on this adult recreational sports. We were just slowly starting to understand that whole deal. And it just blew my mind that any city would have such popularity in dodgeball. And I wonder if Recess Time Sports was part of that. Because I do remember a couple of teams would go to the NDL. And this is where I mess up, but I want to say the Seattle Reign. Does that name something?
I think the Portland Reign they actually won the co-ed division one year, I believe.
Portland Reign. Okay. So I keep doing that. There's the Portland Reign. Obviously, there was, it was OSU at the time. That was Kevin Pack's team. Yeah. And there was a group of Seattle guys that were, the only reason why I know them so well is because they knocked out the Ballbusters, the all-ladies Arizona team. And it was a really close match. And I just remember, vowing vengeance against them. And this was when we were with Rampage. And we never got to face them. Or if we did, I don't remember it. I just remember hating them for knocking the girls out because they were doing so well, and I was like, I'll never forget this team. And I just remember Gray. I remember a bald dude wearing goggles, and that's about as far as my hatred could take me.
So I believe, to my knowledge, Lucas took a Seattle team to actually, I think it was one of the first elites. That's my knowledge of the only time that Seattle had gone. But he could have gone before that, or someone else from there could have. But Portland went to a couple, I want to say it was 2 different years of the NDL. So when I was 18, they went their first year and we had a warm-up tournament, and one of the top teams that we were sending needed a sub, so I filled in for them that day. My dad was on that team at the time, and we ended up winning the warm-up tournament, but they didn't do as well at nationals as they wanted. I don't think they got embarrassed by any means, but they just didn't quite play as well as they wanted. But the next year, one of the co-ed teams we sent won the co-ed division. So, yeah, I mean, before any of us that are on the scene now were playing, they'd had some national success. So those guys and ladies that were on that team, most of them still play. Levi Ness, I know, was on that team for sure, and that dude's a monster. He's getting old now. He's a bald guy with kind of longer limbs than his body, but he has a crazy wicked throw. And his arms are so he probably was a shortstop or something in baseball, because he can throw from any angle. His feet are quick, his footwork's impeccable, and he's just got great eyes to see a ball coming in.
Nice. Does he play in the league, or he just plays in his region?
Locally.
Got it. I'm gonna have to research that, because I should have done that before, because I just remember just a great team. It's like they're evil, they're bad guys. You gotta kill them for what they did. Cool. So let's kind of go back to you mentioned something about like this guy was like must have been shortstop. What sports did you play before you got into dodgeball?
Pretty much everything. As we kind of talked about, a theme of this will be my dad. I kind of grew up. He was a single dad with me for a good chunk of my childhood. So, I mean, sports and video games were kind of what we did together, and a lot of times that was sports video games. So, nice. I mean, I remember playing Blades of Steel just a ton. I love that game. So, and then, I was playing basketball and soccer. Soccer was the first sport I ever played, but it wasn't my sport. I just played it because, you're a kid and they give you sports to play. Basketball was probably the first one I really cared for. I played T-ball, but it wasn't big, but I was willing to play whatever sport that was kind of put in front of me. So I actually didn't even start playing football until ninth grade. We started playing sports at lunch, and in between 9th and 10th grade, the seniors moved out and they wanted to play Frisbee, which is fine. I played ultimate Frisbee too. But then the next year when I was a sophomore, we took over the field and started playing football every day at lunch. We'd play for the whole lunch. We just pick teams real quick and start playing. And my only experience with football was that I loved Madden. So like the year before that, I got one of the Maddens with Dante Culpepper on the cover. So that was 2002, I think. And I taught myself how to throw. Like I just watched, the game, watched football, and saw the way that they threw a ball, learned how to throw a ball. And now I would say football is my second best sport. I play on a flag football league. We've won championships 3 of the last 4 years with actually mostly dodgeball players that I brought over to play football with us. So I just grew up playing everything. If there was a sport in front of me to play, I'd give it a go.
Gotcha. And obviously people won't be able to see this, but not to creep on you, but I see some trophies in the background.
Those are actually all dodgeball trophies. Well, no. So there's actually one. I played a couple seasons of kickball. I hate kickball, but I played a couple seasons. That's probably my favorite trophy, though. So our captains, some of my best friends, I play board games with them all the time, but they made us all player cards at one point. So everyone had a card, like a little trading card, and it had some like funny stats about it. And they gave us all one season. They gave everyone kind of an award. And it wasn't an award necessarily about how you played. It could be, it could not be. I got the most likely to gain aggro. I don't know if you're familiar with like MMOs, or like RPGs. So aggro is what's the term for like drawing heat, basically. So if you're a tank, you want to be able to gain aggro, because that means that everything's attacking you instead of the people around you. So
gotcha.
In that way, I kind of I know how to get people kind of mad at me pretty fast, and very effectively. And I don't necessarily always do it on purpose. Certainly, sometimes I do. But whenever there was a call to argue or someone was heated at someone else, I knew how to just take the attention and put it on me, so that the rest of the team didn't have to deal with it. So gotcha. I was most likely to gain aggro.
Okay, that makes sense. I was going to ask, and I kind of asked Kat this question, but were there any sports that helped you with dodgeball?
Yeah, actually, this is I love talking about this. I would say that there's some of what pretty much every sport I grew up playing. So, I mean, when I started playing football, I played quarterback. As basketball, as a point guard. In soccer, I love to play the midfield. I played a few seasons even of indoor soccer when I got older, just to give it a go again. And I loved the playmaker aspect of all of those positions. I kind of loved the way you watch the field develop, the players move, you kind of coordinate, you attack a certain player to draw a reaction. So, I mean, Steve Nash was one of my all-time favorite players just because he knew how to manipulate the court. Like, there's other guys who could pass the ball the same way he could. The reason he was successful is because he knew how to put a guy in the spot he wanted so that he could get the pass to the guy he wanted to get it to, right? So dodgeball is, I mean, if you can get the player to react the way you want them to, that's the whole game. Like if you just line up and throw it at the other team without doing anything or trying to get anything out of it, I mean, I guess you could win that way. I mean, sure, but if you can get say run up 2 players on one side to make a fake and then throw the throwers the guy on the right side and you hit them as they come down, like it's just so much easier to deal with, right? So like there's no chance of you being caught in that situation. You're throwing a guy who's not even looking at you. So just the way that you can make the game develop, the way that you can see the plays happen, especially when you get bang plays and trades and things like that. Like I'd say I'm pretty good at initiating a trade where we come out on top because I can pay attention to when the ball is on the court for them, when the right time to attack is, and things like that. Just little nuances. So I'd say that playing football, basketball, and soccer really gave me the ability to kind of understand those nuances. And then it was just a matter of realizing, what they were in dodgeball, and then I could take advantage of them after that. So yeah, the court vision is big. Football really is where I learned body control. So I was very good at finding the ball and catching it right. So on a deep ball, it's not always thrown right to you, or you have a defender and you got to go to the other shoulder, or you've got to decide to go for a jump ball and hit it at its highest point. So that was something I was really good at in football, and that really transitions over to dodgeball. Just the ability to throw and be on the right foot and fall the right way. When you jump, just being able to contort or things like that. You won't really ever see me fall really hard, unlike one of my teammates, Greg, who's new to round 1. You'll see that guy take some of the most brutal falls because he just throws himself. He wears pads all over himself because he knows that's his game.
Right.
You won't see that happen to me too often. I just generally am kind of light on my feet. So that's definitely a part of all those sports as well.
Gotcha. So it's not so much just like physical prowess that you receive from these sports. It's also a lot of mental strategy type things that kind of helped.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that I'll walk into any court, field, or game and I'm the most talented person there. I'm just kind of not really tall enough, it's just, I can hold my own, but the way I make my game is through the mental part of it.
So I actually found that team. I couldn't help myself going back to the NDL and it was a Seattle Reign, and go figure. I'm looking at a freaking picture of Lucas.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got.
Can you shoot me it? Oh, yep. So the guy next to Lucas, there on the left, that's Zach. So our first 2 seasons he played with us. Let's see. Behind the sign on the right is Tyson. Jason DeBerry is the bottom in front with his eyes closed. I know number 7 there right in front of Lucas, but I can't remember his name. He stopped playing a little while back. And then I don't recognize there's 4 other guys I don't recognize there. But yeah, that's Zach and Lucas are all-time greats of the Seattle dodgeball community. Tyson still plays, and Jason just had a kid, so he doesn't play very much anymore. But I mean, if you play there, you'd know those guys for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, the reason why I stayed on this topic was because I just always wondered, when is the Northwest going to come into the fray? Like, when are we going to see Portland guys? When are we going to see Damnation? When are we going to see Seattle? Because when I saw the Seattle Classic, I saw, and I kind of wrote about it in the recap article, I saw potential of people to come in and make the elite scene that much better and just more talent that was not tapped yet. So I was really excited to see that. And I always wonder what would happen to people like Seattle Reign, where they played in the NDL and they were really good. But now I'm starting to recognize faces like Lucas, like, oh, I've actually faced off against him in the past before 2013 and whatnot. So it's kind of cool to see that. I did want to ask, because you said like you kind of you went on a hiatus, but you were brought back to dodgeball, and I thought that was interesting. What specifically brought you back? Because most people, they'll hang up their pads or whatever you want to say, they'll retire and then they're just done. But why did you come back?
I guess I wouldn't say that I ever fully retired. I was still playing here and there, just not very much. And then I guess what brought me back into it full time was just the idea that I'd be, playing at the top level. So I I was always kind of a gamer, I guess you'd say. Like I wanted to play and I wanted to win. So if that opportunity was available to play at the highest level, I was going to take it. And like I said, we weren't really at the highest level right off the bat. We were no good for a while, but it was a good experience. And I always loved dodgeball. I can appreciate that dodgeball has something for everyone. There's roles for whatever your skill set is. And I identified, even if I didn't take advantage pretty quickly, of the ways that my athletic past really gave me an advantage. And there's no game like it. I would say it's kind of like it's the sport for the people who need a lot to pay attention to. And I'm definitely one of those people. Like when I'm sitting around, doing nothing, I'm usually doing 2 or 3 things at a time. And when there's 6 balls on the court or, whatever in dodgeball, that's basically the same thing. You have a lot to pay attention to. And I like that a lot.
That's a really good point. It really keeps you engaged. It's funny. I was thinking about this earlier. Me and the coworkers were talking about how boring baseball is. Forgive me if you're a baseball fan, but I just like playing it, watching it. It was never exciting, especially if you're like me. I was in left field all the time, so obviously that's just going to be not fun until that one time, line drive makes it your way and you catch a ball or a pop fly or whatever. And then I played second for a little bit, and that was okay. And then I played pitcher for a little bit, and that was also okay. But man, it's so slow. And with some of the other, I don't want to say like conventional sports, like football, yeah, it's a little more fast paced. There's a little bit more to watch. But dodgeball, it's like, every single person has as much of a pivotal role as, say, the quarterback or as, say, the pitcher for these sports. And so dodgeball is just kind of those things where you always have to be aware, and you can just be just as important as the next guy. And I wonder if that's kind of what keeps the game still seem fresh after all these years.
I definitely think it is. And you don't need a ball in dodgeball. Like the play doesn't have to be coming to you for you to make an impact, right? So like in baseball, like you're saying, and this is why I hate kickball too, is if that ball isn't coming to you, you honestly don't really have to do very much, right? If you're in outfield and the ball doesn't come to you, maybe you go try to back up the guy that it is coming to. In the infield, you get a little more because you get the cutoff responsibility. The catcher and the pitcher are doing the most. Like pitching was the only thing I really love about that. I play video games for every sport, and when I play baseball video games, I play as the pitcher because that's the only thing that's interesting to me.
Even as a video game.
I get that for sure.
Yeah, kickball, really the only challenge is just trying to stay sober, because especially since a lot of them are beer leagues, and it's fun, but it's not like, I'd be hard pressed to call it a sport. And I hate the fact that competitive kickball equals more bunting. I don't know if you ever had that issue.
Yeah, we have that problem here too. Recess Time has a really competitive kickball scene. And it is a fast pitch kickball just becomes bunt city. And so then the outfielders are even more bored, which is sort of compounds the problem. So when I played kickball, I was a pitcher or, bunt stop or catcher, because those were kind of interesting too. But yeah, that's, same thing.
Gotcha. Well, can you recount what your first experience with dodgeball was like? Did you like play in elementary school or high school? Just like, I guess that first time where you're like, I love this sport. Like, this is amazing. What was that like?
Yeah. I don't think I really realized that when I was a kid. Like when I played it in school, it was fine. We played it just like anything else. I probably would have rather played, later I would have rather played football, or earlier I would have rather played basketball. In school, I never quite found the draw that I found once I started playing it with people who, that was what they wanted to do. They wanted to play and have fun, but also seriously. So it wasn't until I played it, against adults that I found the draw of the sport. So I guess I'd have to say that my first time ever playing, we kind of touched on it a bit, was when I was a teenager still. So I was playing in recess time on a team called the Cheaters with my dad. He was in his late 30s, and I was 16 or so. And we were playing, and there's this older lady on the team named Susie, and the league didn't know who I was necessarily because I was playing illegally. I was underage. So, we kind of had to roll with the punches. And she asked if we were lovers, me and my dad first. And then she asked if we were brothers. And then finally we had to kind of like, no, it's my dad. So that was my first like big experience of being in a dodgeball league in Portland, was that me and my dad were dating.
That's awkward. Oh man. So your dad.
But not too long ago, we drove around LA in a little Fiat 500. So we were reliving those days.
Those good old days. I kind of want to ask like what got him into dodgeball. Obviously, he's not the subject of the podcast, though, so that really wouldn't matter. But I do have some questions about him later on. But real quick, I just want to make sure that we kind of got like all the NDL related questions, and I did want to ask. So you mentioned the tour stop, and just to clarify, you didn't participate in any of the DWCs, right? It was just that tour stop.
No, I never went to one of those. I was never asked, and they kind of died before I really hit the point where I would have been the person someone tried to get on their team for that.
Gotcha. So
I did get asked to play on Damnation one time for a local tournament, though, and I had to turn them down because the team I was on that was up and coming was going to make the tournament, so I was going to play with them.
Gotcha. Cool. So let's kind of go back a little bit again to your first like elite debut. I feel like we kind of established like what drew you into elite dodgeball. But you want to kind of run down what Palm Springs was like, what it meant, and what you took away from that showing.
Yeah, so Palm Springs was, I want to say, May 2016. That was our, Reignbros actually had never played together, played with one or two of those guys at different points on different teams, but never as that form, and we had two players from Seattle. So we'd maybe had one practice or maybe two practices leading up to that. So, I mean, really, we had an idea of what we were doing. We had some play call, like some fake calls and things like that lined up, but this was a powerhouse team. If you were to throw that team we put together in any Northwest tournament, there's no team of people that I think were left there at that time that would have been able to hang. So there was no doubt that this was an all-star team, at least coming from where we were coming from. So, we were pretty confident. You definitely have that worry in the back of your mind that like, this may not go our way. And, in round robin, I think we kind of showed, I think we took a game from Doom and we took a game from Rise, even in just open round robin. And so, I mean, you get that far. I mean, I think our first, I'll give a positive shout out at the same time that I mentioned what happened to them when we played them. But the first guy who came up and the first team that we really got to know, first guy was Tori. I'm blanking on his last name.
Tori Thompson.
Tori Thompson. Yep. The famous guy, the most famous guy in Elite.
Exactly.
And he came right up and introduced himself to all of us. He's the captain of Showtime. Everyone, I mean, and we love that team. They made a run in one of those, I think it was open of that bracket, and man, we were having a blast cheering them on. And he came up right off the bat, was like, "Hey guys, welcome. We're happy to have you here. Can't wait to play you. Do your best. Don't worry about what anyone has to say. All that kind of stuff. That just a new team is kind of good to hear." And they were our first. It turned out that they were our first match of the day. And we have that film on video, and the match against them was less than 2.5 minutes long, like the whole match. And so you could tell, like, if you watch that footage, you could tell that this was a bunch of monsters waiting to be uncaged for, the last 2 months since we'd kind of planned this thing, and everything was built up. And I feel a little bad that was the team we took. Like, if we'd have played Doom at that first game, that would have been something to watch, because, if they probably could have turned it around on us maybe and taken that aggression, but it just I think they got one out. They got 2 outs, and it was me in the first game. I fell back to make a catch and missed it and deflected into a teammate. And that was and we got caught back in. I'm pretty sure. So that was our first match, was that. So at that point, I think we probably knew that they weren't the best team there, but that was like, okay, we're here. This is fine.
That was like your statement, kind of.
Yeah, I would say that. And, then to also take a game on Doom and Rise. And then, so that tournament was a 2-day tournament. Luckily, they've done away with those at individual rounds, because it's a pain in the butt to stay in Palm Springs for an extra day. So then we had co-ed, and I mean, we're pretty known now as one of the best co-ed teams. We have our ladies are top tier, especially in 8.5. I think if you're going to take the 1 and 2 lady in the country, Tiffany's 1 and Kate's top 5. So in that we have a huge advantage because we don't just rely on them to pass balls. We rely on them to be players on the team. And that was actually a weird culture shock for us coming from Portland where our ladies play. It's not that they don't pass the ball, but they still, generally learn the skills. To see so many teams where all the lady does is just kind of shag the ball. And then you don't even let her hold the ball. Well, man, when we saw Rise do that, or some of the other teams, they would hold two guys would hold 2 balls each, and the ladies would be standing back there doing nothing. That was just a weird culture shock for us. Just to not even have them protect or play any kind of game like that. And at one point, someone made a comment. I think it was Billy. I was like, "Give your girl a ball, let her play," and she's like, "We don't want to lose." And I'm just like, "All right, cool."
Well.
So that was one of the most interesting culture shocks for us. But we came out seeded pretty high in both. We were 5th, I think, in open, and we were probably top 5 in co-ed too. And then day 2 of the bracket, I think we actually lost kind of early because we had to play Legion of Boom in the losers bracket, and then we had to play Titan in the losers bracket. I'm pretty sure we were down in the second game of that, but I'm pretty sure we 2-0'd him. Catch him through a catch. He tried to throw a back line, and our guy ducked it, and the guy in the back corner caught it. It was just terrible luck.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because that's what I remember hearing. I just remember like when they faced off against you, catch them through from the back line, and we definitely griped about that, and then exactly what we said. Somebody ducked, and then somebody on the back line just caught it. Like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. It was Zach, and Koiv ducked, and Zach caught it in the back corner, and it was just that. I think that caught me back in, and then I got. Me and Zach just took out the whole other side of the court. I'm pretty sure I got Dibble, and I'm pretty sure I got Israel, and then Casey got hit by Zach. Something like that. Just like bang, 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 and then someone was all on their own, and then the game was over. Acton. I think Acton was left final, and I got him in the arm.
So that's I was wondering why I remember that play and like why we had talked about that specific instance, and it's kind of cool because now I have a little bit more context. But that was like that momentum shift where at that point it was done. So that's why we were so in arms about it, because I think we're talking about like in the team chat or at work, because me and Brett worked together at the time. But yeah, I was gonna ask you if you do you remember a time when like catch them through and somebody ducked and you caught it? What happened? It was important.
I can send you the video if you want it.
I think
got it. Just that game. Somehow we didn't get the first game, so I have no idea what happened there. But we have the game literally starting from the point Ketchum throws the catch to. So with only the good parts.
Of course. That's the story of Ketchum's life. My God, you have to have seen the Brody video?
Yep.
Just a quick segue. Like you can hear there's so many amazing things that happen in that video, but like what I really like is Ketchum's like, why does this always happen to me? And it's like, I don't know, man, cameras are always on you, so it's going to happen. But
yeah, well, and you take enough shots, you're going to get, some of them are going to go wrong. It's the law of averages or something like that. So
it's like a numbers game.
So yeah, I think after that we went on to play Rise in the losers final. And I think it was 2-1. I don't remember. I think we have film of it, but I don't remember it very well. I remember a couple times where Billy came in out of order, and they didn't have a rule about that then, so they just were able to fix it. But I don't remember if it was in the playoff match or if it was in the round robin matches. And just I think we just they didn't know. So one thing before a Surge plays any team he doesn't know, especially a Northwest team, he comes up to me and he asks me about the team. He's like, who should we worry about? What should we watch out for?
Really?
And I don't think they knew what to do when they played us. They hadn't figured it out yet. So I think their targeting was probably bad. And then they just didn't know, where everything was going to come from. And so we were able to take advantage of some misdirection and stuff like that.
Did you tell Surge, like, oh yeah, you should totally watch out for me or for Ricky.
Oh
Or
no, he so that we didn't know each other then. Now he comes to me for that stuff. So like round one, I got I had to give him the rundown on Fortune and on Downpour.
gotcha. I was like, well, that's pretty. I mean, you might as well try. Like, hey, new team. Like, who do we look out for?
Yeah,
Like,
who's
can you give us
who's
some
gonna
hints,
do
please?
what over here?
I was like, that's kind of bold and naive, but also why not? I mean, huh?
Seems like I could see Serge doing that. He's kind of got that personality where he just walk into a room and ask the question.
Yeah, like I wouldn't even put that past him because he's so analytical and so like calculating. He'll if it gets him an advantage, I wouldn't put it past him. Like I said, actually, so I did want to go back to that too. Like I think it's really cool and interesting that you like watched video before you guys showed up to make sure you had a chance. Was there any teams that you're just like, we definitely got to look out for these guys, or we got to look out for these players, or how did you like mentally get prepared so that when you guys debuted in Elite, you took second?
Well, I think we've never taken second in Open since then. So I think we definitely benefited from not being known. We came in with an advantage of knowing more about our opponents than they knew about us. And, that's certainly valuable. I don't think after you enter the scene like that, people then learn who you are. Like we didn't come to nationals and, on a clean slate anymore like that. So, but yeah, we saw Pine earlier in the year. We saw Fury as a team basically. And the Fury is one of the better co-ed teams and a team the team that played them in the Classic was just me and Ricky and like Aldo and Keith, a couple guys from Double Tap that played on a team together there. So it wasn't, Aldo and Keith are great players. I came up playing with Aldo and Keith. I met through flag football a few years ago and brought him into Dodgeball. And now they both travel for Elite too. But, they're not Sean and Koiv, right? So, we're taking on this team that's basically an Elite team. They're out of their element in a different rule set, but we handled them, like I said, 4-1. So, we at that point, it wasn't that much to be scared of anymore. So yeah, there was players we knew to look out for. I want to say like I knew Kenny's arm from Deathball and Davey. Those were arms that we saw in Deathball. I think they were like the number 3 team or something the year before that. And so they were kind of a big deal at the time. And then I don't know that there's not very much film on Rise. Most of the film from Rise was from before. So I knew who Billy was, and he'd come to the Classic before. We knew about his throw. The rest of those guys like Tim, I don't think we could have predicted what Tim could do, but we just kind of treated him like we treated everyone like they were good players. As far as Doom goes, we definitely knew who Vince was. He's a little bit famous. That was right around the time that ESPN did the little Kenny Mayne special with him and the guys from Doom and regarding UDC. And, he's like, oh, I'll invite him to pick up and then laugh at them when I blast them in the face, like that whole thing. So we knew who Vince was. Pine was obviously from the Classic. I don't know that there was anyone else on that team that was really like, we were like, that's the one we need to look out for. We kind of had that already figured out. So, but so we beat Rise in the losers final, and then Doom. The first game we had them. So the first game of that Open, final came with it was Sean and Ricky against Pine, and they double teamed, and Ricky hit him, and Sean put the ball that was a little late right in his stomach. And of course, in the Elite rules, you can still make that catch, and that's not something we were used to. That was the game right there. Vince came in, Sean's out, Pine's out. It's Vince on Ricky, and Ricky slides across the back and goes out of bounds. He doesn't even get hit. And then the second game, they just swept. I think we probably like, crap, we should have had that game. And so we had a letdown game. The next game, they slaughtered us. I think we also fell out of bounds or something. And that was a big adjustment, was the out of bounds. We'd never played with hard lines anymore before that.
Gotcha. Well, all the same, it was an impressive showing, and it was definitely like, you're not like a brand new team that, maybe these guys will be a breeze. Like I said, when I found out about you guys, like the Reignbros, like where do they come from? Like who are they? And I thought like for a second Kevin Pack had come back, and it was the OSU guys. But when they tell me these names, like I've never heard these names before. Like who are these people? So it's kind of cool hearing that. Through my point of view. So let's kind of move away from Elite just for a little bit, and I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on the international scene, and primarily, do you have an interest in Team USA?
Yeah, man, I've been giving a lot of thought to we've got the two competing organizations, the WDBF with USA Dodgeball and the US Dodgeball, which is, I think, the WDO. I can't remember. WDS?
I think it's before I say
one of the two. Whoever does the cloth. Maybe it's the WDA. I don't know. There's too many acronyms. We've got the tryouts going on right now for the cloth ball. I just got my email about basically what's your commitment? Are you willing to accept, that you may not play some games and stuff like that? But it's a huge bummer that we have these two competing organizations, and it turns out that UDC is the same week. I'd love to play in both of those things. There's no reason why I shouldn't. And that two, the biggest events in dodgeball. I mean, every UDC that comes along is a new biggest event potentially in dodgeball history, top 5. And if the US Dodgeball guys can come through in their promise of Madison Square Garden, there it is. You could play in a stage that no one's ever played dodgeball in like that before. So I don't think it's good for dodgeball that these two, maybe there's stuff behind the scenes I don't know, but it's definitely not good for dodgeball that at the same time. It's even worse for dodgeball if someone didn't take an extra step to try to make sure that didn't happen.
Yeah, I can kind of comment on. I'm kind of glad you brought up, because we only talked about Madison Square Garden and the other World Dodgeball organization or whatever it is, with Rob Immel, because I kind of follow him a little bit. I've known him for a long time, and it's without getting too negative about this whole thing. It's the same mentality with the NDL. You can't play in our organization if you're playing in others, and so that immediately puts a really bad taste in other people's mouths. And like you said, it's very negative towards the sports. So I tend to lean more towards foam and the World Dodgeball Federation and what's been put together with the Team USA's that I think are more, I don't want to say more popular, but like the one that's going to happen in LA, and the one that's all these changes with USA Dodgeball. So that's about as much as I can comment on, as far as I know, what's going on with the other cloth. But kind of brought up another point too. I didn't ask about UDC, so I'll kind of have to come back to that one. But you said you do have interest in representing Team USA for either organization.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough choice though, because the only one I'm in the running for is US Dodgeball. So I guess my problem as an outsider for the WDBF and USA Dodgeball is I'm not going to get picked for that team. First of all, I'm not necessarily a popular guy among the people who make those decisions, and second of all, they have players there that they see play way more often than me. Even if I was, even if the standard argument was that I was on their level, I could make that argument, but most people probably wouldn't. So there's a team that's going to go way before I go. So, the chance I have is in the other one. And unfortunately, there's the conflict there. So yeah, I'd love to play for Team USA. And I definitely think I have something to add to any team I play on. I think, I could play pretty much any role that's necessary. And I don't know, most people who've seen me play know that, generally I make the right decision. And that's something that can be successful on any team.
Gotcha. So the interest is there. If the opportunity presented itself, you'd definitely be down. It's just a matter of, I don't want to say politics, but that, and also just being scouted, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll get, they'll get to see me. They maybe won't get to see me play foam. Unfortunately, I was really bummed that I made the trip for the LA Classic and they didn't have the right foam balls. Like they had some kind of knockoff, and that was, so it was a different game than what you'd see. So that was a bummer. And then I couldn't make the tribute tournament. I wanted Reignbros to go to that, but I think most of those guys really only care about rubber, and I'll play whatever kind of dodgeball there is to play. My game translates. So, but some of them don't. When we play No Sting, Sean's game's different. Ricky doesn't even play it. Koiv loves it. Koiv's great at No Sting. So, I mean, we all have kind of our different preferences.
Gotcha. I was going to ask, do you have a favorite style of ball?
Anything but No Sting, actually.
Oh, really?
I actually really love the cloth. I would say the cloth is probably my second favorite, and some of that falls into the game style of cloth. I love that it's a counterattack game. You have to throw the ball in a certain amount of time, or you get counted, and then then you really have to throw the ball. So it really benefits you to attack the court, and that's my backline to center line speed is, and the quickness I can read that the throw's not coming for me and get to the line is one of my biggest strengths. So that game suits me very well. I would say that better than the 8.5 elite game. Like, my skill set's better in that game than it is in 8.5. But 8.5 is for me not only just my favorite ball, but I think it's the best standard to measure dodgeball by, because it is the most balanced ball. Like, no sting is too much of a thrower's game. 7-inch foam, the way they make the rules, it's just not an exciting game. Resetting the clock every time a ball's thrown is just painfully slow. It really just benefits only throwing one ball back and forth, which is what they complain about with Elite. So it doesn't make sense that they have a rule set that's even worse for that. But, it's a big organization. It's not like one person decides that. So no sting. I also just don't like that every ball I pick up is different. I don't know how much experience you have with no sting, but some of them are 6 inches and some are 6.5 and some are 5.5 and some are 7. And then the 7-inch one is really squishy and the 6-inch one's rock hard. Like, just,
yeah, you kind of don't know what you're going to get sometimes.
Yeah, it ends up that a bunch of my balls just fly straight into the ground because it's I have to grip it slightly different or release at a slightly different point than the last one I held. And it's just, imagine if you're playing, and this happens a little with 8.5 balls, but I mean, imagine if you're playing baseball and every guy walked up there with one had a wooden bat, one had a metal bat, and one had the big old plastic bat from the backyard. Just like, or the pitcher had, they toss a ball out if that ball isn't exactly perfect. If it gets a scuff mark on it, they throw it into a bin.
It's done.
Right? So it just is a bummer that ball that's making its way through everything is the ball that's the least consistent.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think there are definitely times where I've noticed, like, oh man, this ball sucks. I'm gonna have to dump this one. I can't do anything with it. Versus, oh, this is a good ball. I'm talking about no sting. I don't think I had that problem too much with Sin City. I felt like they had a pretty good consistency, but it definitely happens. So I totally understand what you're saying there. And then with 8.5, there's like this ritual that has to be done once the new balls arrive that need to make sure that they're perfect. But I think it's getting better. Because, man, there have been times in tournaments I've gone to where, I'm playing with an 8.5 ball, but it's blown up to the point where it's like 10 inches in diameter, or it's like super smooth.
Sidearm.
Yeah, and like, oh, well, this isn't going to be a throwing game anymore. So, yeah, it's interesting that you would put cloth second. I can't stand the cloth balls. I think they're just the devil of a ball.
So the funny thing about that is, I mean, like, we've had the tryouts and Sean's hands his fingers go a good inch to an inch and a half farther than mine. Like,
so you can grip them probably.
I don't exactly have big hands, but he can't grip them very well. Like, there's something about them that there's just the perfect way to fit your hand on them. And I don't have, like, I've maybe in the 4 hours or whatever we've practiced, I've had 1 or 2 slip out of my hand. Most of them go right exactly where I'm trying to throw them, just like any other ball I would throw. And Sean will wind it back and whoop, ball falls out the back, It happens to Brandon Cook sometimes too. It's just something about, like, I've tried to show everyone where I grab it, there's like, because it has the seams on it. It's got like the little laces kind of under the cloth, but you stick your thumb right in one of the corners and you stick your fingers over the top lace there and
you can actually grip it.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Well, it's been a long time since I've handled one. And I do remember there was like one specific way you can potentially grip one. And once you do that, then it's not bad. It becomes more of a fun game because you're actually able to throw and be effective with it. So, but I'm curious to see like how this organization plays out. So 2018 Dodgeball World Cup in New York, under USA Dodgeball. And I'm trying to find the international the international tie-in here. I can't it's like World, I think it's World Dodgeball Association. But yeah, I'll be curious to see how that turns out. You said tryouts were coming up soon?
No, we've had 2 tryouts here in the Northwest already. So I think we have a few of the players who played in it when it was in Manchester, England, a couple years back. So, I from my understanding is the the leadership there is pretty. They have some loyalty. They have some loyalty. So I guess whether that's a good or bad thing, the people who've played for them or remained loyal to them are kind of who they listen to and follow with. So luckily, I'm in a place with some of those people. So I think my name's getting. I think I'm getting lifted up a little bit.
Yeah, it is World Dodgeball Association, and before this turns into a different type of interview, I'll go ahead and kind of just. If people want to look it up, you're more than welcome to. It is the website is just had it usdodgeball.com. Yeah, whatever happens, wish you luck on that one, and it'll be fun to watch, regardless of what happens. But we can go ahead and just kind of move forward with the international scene. I did want to ask, because you brought up earlier, I was going to ask what your style of play was, and then I made a note that it was, it seems like you're more mental, but do you kind of want to expand upon your style of play a little bit more?
Yeah. So that's a tough one to kind of quantify. I think mental is, that's probably the main part of my game. Like if I didn't think about it so much beforehand, it sort of turns into more instinctual on the core. Instinctual. So generally, just be able to react quickly. But I guess I would say that I'm more of a defensive player. Like my style of play is more the Rise school than the Doom school. And Rise is a very defensive team. They wait for the right moment. They pick their shots. They waste a lot of balls. I mean, I'm not lighting anyone up. And so if I end up being the thrower, it's usually some kind of misdirection or, a smart, well-placed ball. And then, draw them in. You can either, there's a lot of ways you can do that, use the fakes. I'll throw a ball just purposely to dump if I think someone's going to counter me so I can get the catch instead. I mean, there's nothing in the rules that says I have to try to hit you. So, that I would say if I had to pick between like defensive, offensive, catching, a pressure player, I would say that I'm more of a defensive player than any of those other things. But I would say that there's a couple. They don't. The other segments of my game don't fall far behind, and I can shift gears pretty well.
Gotcha. I can definitely attest to a very well placed ball. When we played against you in the West, I mean, granted, I was still shaking off some of the cobwebs, but you threw like this perfect ball that it just looked like it was going to drop, and it just hit me like ever so perfectly on the top of my shoe. And I just watched it. I was like, I should do something. Because I thought you're going to throw at my chest. Because I saw it coming. Like, okay, Alan's going to throw at me. Here we go. And then I just saw it, like, not go that way. I was like, okay, is it going to dip? Am I going to try to catch this? Am I going to do anything? Am I just going to let this? Yeah, just let it happen. So that was a very well-placed ball. It was very, like,
Were you on the right corner your left corner away from me on the right? Yep. So that's it's amazing to me that this still works. But I mean, I could list off a whole bunch of names of people I hit exactly like that. Most of them leading up to, I got Ronk like that. I got Chris Bell like that. I got Glenn like that. I'm trying to think of how many other people I got where they're just in that right corner, and
that makes me feel better.
You kind of think I'm probably gonna throw over there because I do it all the time, but I don't ever look at you usually. And then I don't actually face my body towards you. I kind of release outside, and that's my spot.
Yeah, it was. Well, like I said, I'm glad you're listing those names because I don't feel as bad. But I was just like, man, you had all day to do something. And you did nothing.
It's not coming very fast, man. Come on.
Yeah, no, I don't mean it like that. I was just you threw it. You weren't even on the line either. You were just kind of like, it looked like you're just dumping it, and I was like, well, yeah, he dumped it on my foot. So. Good job there, Steve. Let's kind of get into the crowdsourced questions here. Let's start with Joe Colella. I don't know if we need to reword this one, but I'll give it a shot.
No, this is my favorite question.
Oh, sweet. So I'll just go ahead and ask it as is then. And that is, if you had to jump on a team from the West Coast, even though I guess you're technically part of the West Coast region, for the remainder of the year, which team would it be and why? And who would you replace on that team and why? Oh, man.
That's a good one. I'm not one to shy away from drama. So, go Joe. Great question. My style fits perfectly with one team, and that's Rise. I'd love to play on Rise. If I ever didn't have Reignbros to play on, that's the team I'd look to make my reappearance on for sure. I also have a lot of respect for those guys. I think that a lot of dodgeball kind of treats this professional dodgeball thing we have like it's just some big friendly family, and that's not really what professional sports is, right? Like, you don't watch basketball and the guy fouls the guy and he's like, yep, I did it, it was me, or it goes off him out of bounds, he's like, oh yeah, that was off me. No, like, that's not how professional sports works. And I think a lot of people have it in their head that somehow dodgeball is just going to be this happy place for everyone forever, and I think Rise is not that. And so as much as maybe that kind of makes them look like dicks from time to time to a lot of people, at least they're honest about it, unlike some other people who maybe aren't, or just don't really know what they're getting themselves into, or maybe you have like a double standard of how it works, or misconceptions of the way that human nature is. So for that reason, I really like those guys, and I would play with them in a heartbeat. And again, given Reignbros gone, and I think I'd replace Tyler. I think we're the closest to the same player in that, and they use him very similar to how I would play on that team. They have him take shots from time to time. Our teams are built fairly similar as well. Like, we're not all that different. Each of us has the big gun. We've got Sean and they've got Chris. I would say Serge and Ricky are pretty similar. Tim and Coy, or sorry, not Tim and Coy. Tim and the new guy we added, Reeve, are very similar players. And then Jim and Coy are pretty similar. And like I said, I think I could fill Tyler's spot. So, not that it would be an upgrade. I wouldn't go that far, but I think I can do some things he doesn't necessarily do. And I think, he probably does a few things that they have him for that I'd have to adjust to. But that'd be the way I'd go. Special shout out to Havoc. I'd love to play with those guys. I don't know who I'd replace though. And then who else would I love to play for? That's all I can think of off the top of my head.
Pretty good answers. Havoc, they're fun looking. They look intense, and they're fun to watch. They just seem really really fast paced, but I feel like it's kind of like a good balance. I like watching them play. And then as far as, I think his other question was, what makes your respective team unique from others in your division, and what teams always seem to get the better of you head to head?
Rise has been a tough one for us since we first beat them in Open in Palm Springs. We really haven't had much success against them. We beat them in round 2 last year at San Jose in co-ed, and then we beat them in co-ed in the round robin. At Nationals, we smoked them. There's been some back and forth, but when it matters, they usually tend to come out on top of. I mean, we've had 2 really contested games. If you want to look at the winners final, we played them in Nationals co-ed, and that was a 2-1 game that we should have had, and one of our players made a pretty big mistake, and it swung the game quickly. And then, you could say the same about the winners final at round 1. We were right in that game. So just a couple different adjustments here and there. And, so they're fun to play against. Doom's always had our number. Like I said, we finally just got them the first time. That's an interesting one to me though, because I think if we played them on a weekly basis, like if they were in our local league, I think we'd overtake them much more quickly. I think we would gain more from the consistent play against them than they would gain from the consistent play against us. So I think there's a chance we'll see we took one, maybe that'll give us the confidence, like in Rocky when he's fighting Drago, he's cut. So I think maybe some of that'll come into play.
Nice reference. That's awesome. You can bleed.
And then what makes our team different? I think we have a unique style of game. Like the Northwest is a big time catching game. And I don't think there's teams really that catch kind of the way we do, that aggressively catch. We are aggressive catchers. Ricky sort of leads that charge, but it's that swing you mentioned against Titan, we get that catch and then come in and get everyone out. We did the same thing against Fury in the quarterfinal of co-ed. in round 1 this year. They got it down to 5-on-1 against me. I get a catch. It's 4-on-2, and 30 seconds later, we've gotten the whole team out. So that like we have that catch momentum swing it's a card in our pocket. And losing Lucas, he was a big part of that, but it's still there. We still have it.
Gotcha. Real quick, hopefully it doesn't open any wounds or anything, but why did Lucas depart the Reignbros?
That's an interesting question. He was kind of soft asked it with the book of Dodgeball. He didn't give much of an answer. There's a couple things. I don't think we played the style he wanted to play. He likes to not be used a lot early in the game. He likes to wait and wait and wait. Well, it's tough when you have a weapon like that not to use it, right? But he, I'm not sure what it is, but he has kind of an attention. The more attention is on him, the better the player he becomes a lot of times. He sort of has that, the more you put on his shoulders, the more he picks up. And so we were putting kind of the mundane things like, yeah, you're the solo right now, like early in the game, 6-on-6 first shot, you get it. And I mean, his catch percentage in those situations was way higher than it should have been. So I just stuff like that. I think he felt like he could use himself better. And I think that takes a backseat. That I think he also wanted to get the Seattle people playing. He knew there was talent there, and he was right for sure. I mean, I would have been able to tell you the same thing. It's not a grand understanding, but it also now means he can play his style. It means he can practice. Lucas is you heard about his play calling. I think I would say I put the game on an instinctual level. I think about it enough beforehand that it becomes instinctual. He really complicates the game. And for him, it works. Like for him and his teams, they've had success, for a long time. But it wasn't something that we were necessarily willing to do with, the rest of the team, is have kind of all these code words and things like that. And he called them set plays, where you could like say something and our two corners would go up and know who they're throwing at. We invented a number system to do that. And it didn't seem like he always thought there was a better way to do it. And we always thought like this was the least complicated, easiest way to do it. So
gotcha.
There was a bit of butting heads, but it's nothing that ruined friendships or anything. I mean, he made the decision at the right time in the off season. And, I don't feel like he didn't give us everything he had or anything. So he didn't LaMarcus Aldridge us for any of those people who follow basketball. I've
heard that name. Don't get the
He's
reference.
A Blazer who gave up in a playoff series against Memphis and then went to San Antonio.
Oh, wow. Gotcha. I'll have to look that up and read more about that. So, because I've heard that term a few times already, but cool. Well, that was a quick segue. That was just something I meant to ask earlier, actually. But so let's go into Frankie Giannotto's question. That's, what's the deal with long sleeves, and does it restrict movement at all?
Shout out to Frankie. He decided to get a short sleeve shirt. Yeah, we've got an order going on right now. Unfortunately, it'll probably be closed by the time this goes up, but we've got a bunch of people ordering shirts, which is awesome. And thank you, Frankie. I don't have a problem with it. The problem will come in is if you're sort of height and doesn't match up with the size of shirt you wear. So like I wear a medium and the medium sleeves are the right size for me. But if you were my size, but you wore a large, the long sleeves would be a little bit longer on you. Or Frankie wanted to get an extra large, and the long sleeves on that would have probably covered his hands, just the way they make the shirt. So it's got to be right for your size. Like Sean gets away with wearing an XL. The sleeves are the right size because he's 6'4" or whatever. But they don't change that, right? So if you get an XL and you're my height, you're going to be in trouble. If you get an XL and you're Sean's height, you're going to be fine. If Sean wore a medium, he'd be screwed. They'd go barely past his elbow. So they're really comfy. I love them. They 100% polyester shirts. People say, you're going to get hot. I don't have that problem at all. It keeps the sweat off the ball a lot more. You don't necessarily sweat through a polyester shirt very much. And then that means your arms don't have that going on, right? You have the shirt. So, yeah, it's probably more mental, just like a lot of people, the way they tape. Like the tape's probably as much mental as it is like an actual impact on the game. But Yeah, I like them. I think they look cool, especially with the designs we've got. Like some just have a long sleeve that really is nothing. Our sleeves, like the sleeves are part of the design of the shirt, and I think that's really awesome too. So
Gotcha. Yeah, so Grit, we had long sleeves, and I got on board that train, and I didn't really notice overheating, like you said. I actually felt drier than normal, and I think it's kind of like what you said about the polyester. And they don't seem to restrict movement for me by any means. And I don't know if it's like a psychological thing, but just like you said, I felt more comfortable. So I don't see as a big deal as I used to. I used to think people would just burn alive in those things and they're crazy for wearing them, but that doesn't seem to be the case for people.
yeah, Sean. So I hadn't really seen teams where we used to have last year. Our new jerseys were like a light blue kind of pattern that had a pizza, a taco, and like a cloud and a rain on it, and it was a Lucas design. And Sean actually got a long sleeve one of those, so he's been wearing long sleeve for a little while now. He kind of loves it. I didn't have one last year, but I ordered a bunch of our new jerseys this year, so I made sure I wasn't uncomfortable in whichever I got. So,
Nice.
but I love the long sleeve. Like I'll probably be playing in those at all the rounds.
Gotcha. Well, Sergio Leone asked, how do you feel about running it back for rematch and showdown? And I think you said joust instead. Did you guys face off against each other?
Yeah. So my round one matchup was against Sergio. I think it went down 3-1. I think I got 2, and then he hit me, and then I think I caught him in the fourth game to take him out. So, yeah, I mean, when we get a chance, I want to joust. Like I'd love to just in the intermission of an elite set up a court and just have a joust. The winner stays on, get in line, kind of thing. The joust is a blast, and it's something that you can do super quick. It basically plays itself. You just have a court in 4 balls or 5 balls, and you go. And you can run it just in a pickup, just next person on. So hopefully we get a chance to do that. It was a pleasure playing against you, Sergio, but I got my sights set on the finals.
Nice.
Vince took me out last year and was not stoked about the gym we were playing it in. I don't know if you were at round 3, but that gym in San Diego was gross humid, and it made every ball a nightmare to grip, especially for a guy like me with small hands. So I couldn't really get anything on it. And he probably would have smoked me anyway. He won the thing. I'm not trying to say I would have beat him, but I don't have to worry about him this year because he's out already.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was there for round 3. I was shaking my head like, no, I wasn't there, but no, I was. Physically, I guess I was there. Mentally, must not have been to not remember. But I don't remember too much humidity. Maybe I'm used to it, but I've been exposed to far worse humid gyms, so I didn't remember too much of that. But so you did joust? You did showdown this past round 1?
Yeah. Much up. Now I play Mick. So shout out to you, Mick. Mick got a Allyn Thomas Reignbros jersey in this recent order. So appreciate that, and I get to play him in the next round. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
He's a smart and capable player who's pretty new to elite. So that'll be fun. And I love that team they're on. I love Tuda and Saucy. It's an awesome team. Those is just a bunch of kids that came from trampoline. Like that's awesome to me.
Yeah, it's pretty cool seeing that happen. Let's see. So he also asked, and I'm so glad again that he asked this question, but do you have like a pregame playlist, or do you have a couple of tracks that help you get in the zone or just to amp you up?
That's so what I listen to would probably amp anyone down. Like I think, when we got in the car to drive to the gym in the morning for round 1, I think I probably put like Bare Naked Ladies on or something. Huh. I was probably singing 1 week, like Pinch Me, or If I Had $1 Million. Like I was probably singing that on the way to the gym. I'll occasionally put on like a Dragon Force song or something and get pumped that way. But that's just not, my game isn't really to get charged up like that. Really, it's more to just like relax,
like mellow you out a little bit.
Yep.
Do you have like a pre-tournament ritual? This is kind of a segue to that question too.
Yeah, and this is a good question. When I get to a tournament, the first thing I want to do is say hi to everyone. So like I think I spend I'll usually tape up while I'm doing it or whatever, but I love to just go around and talk to everyone, especially at elites. I don't see those people but a couple times a year. I just love to go say hi to all the people, give some people a hug, high five. just have a chat, catch up a little bit. Really, I wouldn't do anything but that before a tournament, really.
Nice. What about the night prior? Like, do you eat anything special or make sure you sleep 8 hours a night, or do you just kind of show up?
Boy, I'm looking forward to sleeping 8 hours before the Portland round. I sleep terrible in hotels. So you've seen me at not my best as far as the sleep game goes.
Sleep deprived.
I'm generally a pretty bad at eating right. So trying to think of what we ate before round one. I think I probably had Panda Express.
Ooh.
So maybe that explains the cramping.
Maybe just a little bit.
So that's a weakness in my pregame. I could probably help, but we'll see.
Gotcha. Markel Stokes asked, what is your most clutch play in dodgeball? And there's probably quite a few. So I guess, is there a certain play you remember that was just like completely like this changed the entire outcome of the tournament for you that stands out?
Well, this is, pretty timely because I can't think of one more clutch than the catch I had on Brody at round one this year. So if it was the quarterfinal, they were the 1 seed, and I feel like we were probably the 11 seed. We played pretty crappy in co-ed. In the round robin, we kind of got into each other a little bit and had to regroup. But we found it before the bracket started and went into the bracket ready to go. And the first game, we beat them pretty good. The second game, we were going to beat them, and then we threw a bad catch on a group throw. There's just no reason to put the ball where we did. And Angelique, I think, has caught Sean at least 15 times. So she just added to it. And then the third game, we got – what happened in the third game? I got out on a high ball from Davey, and then Ricky threw a catch on that very same exchange. So Davey threw it and hit me, and Ricky tried to counter him, and Davey caught it. So I was first out. Ricky was second, and then they just kind of picked us off one by one. We threw a catch on a deflection. Reeve threw a catch that was blocked up and went to the other side, and one of them caught it on the other side of the back lines. Crappy. Kate threw and hit Fazel out, and Ryan tried to counter, and she caught Ryan. And that caught me back in. So it was me, Tiffany, and Kate. And Kate, I didn't have a ball. I came in too quick because I was too eager, and Kate saved the day. She put pressure on Brody, made sure I had time to get a ball. Brody eventually hit her out, but, if not for what she did there, I'd have been out. And so it was me and Tiff. We had a couple chances at the double teams. We couldn't get any outs. Eventually, I got caught out of position again. And Tiff saved my butt, so she had the presence of mind to pull a ball, to shag a ball first to the back line so that my teammates could get it to me. And then she also threw a counter at a throw that was at me. Davey made another great catch while in the mid-throw he dropped and caught the counter. But, it was the exact right throw. She had to make it. It was just a great catch. And so then it's me against 5. So Fazel's the only person out on the team, and it's Davey, Ryan, Brody, Rolina, and Angelique. And I'd take a couple back and forths. They don't really run me down, which is like what Rise would have done. I probably would just got run down right away, but they were playing really conservative for some reason. And finally, a sort of half-hearted group throw came. I kind of pitched the ball at the side at Ryan, who was on my right, and his throw kind of went outside right, and Rolina's went right into the ground in front of me, and I dropped, and Davies comes right at my face, just hands only, snag it, don't go out of bounds or anything. And Ricky comes in, and we just wipe him out. Right to left, Ryan's out, Davies out, Rolina throws a catch, and Angelique is last. Sean comes back in, and we light her up. So that's the knockdown game, right? If we lose that game 5-on-1, we go to the loser bracket, and could be a totally different story. So instead, we end up winning that game. We go on to play Force, and we beat them, and then we go on to play Rise and lose, and play Force again and beat them, and then lose to Rise in the final. So, that could be a different story. That's a couple more matches we have to win if we lose there, and a brutal loss after that second game that we should have won. So, look at the context of it, and I was pretty stoked with that one, and the way everyone throughout the whole situation, there was things burning down, but I wasn't the only one who made a play.
Nice. So that was like a catch. You just like caught it midair with your hands
Yeah,
away.
on my knees. I dropped to my knees and leaned back. I basically did an Angelique. I mean, that's her catch that she's made on Sean 50,000 times, and I did it to Brody. So
How do you like it? That's what it feels like. Nice.
so yeah. So luckily she had one right before that, and I just was like, oh, I could do that too. So
Cool. Those are fun catches to watch happen. They're just the crowd silencing. They're just like, whoa, like everybody just loves when that happens.
So the brutal thing about that one is there's 4 cameras on the game and not one has a clean view of it.
Of course.
How does that happen, man?
You know what there's a clean view of though? I think Vince was running you down, you went on the ground, he hits you, you roll up and it just like pops right on top of your head. You're like, wait,
yep.
what? Like, of course
it's my camera too.
Oh, man.
Well, not my camera, but our camera from Portland Dodgeball. So yeah, so that he has that thanks to us recording everything.
Yeah, go figure. That's what's.
Thank you, Keith.
That's what you got a perfect view of, perfect angle.
Yep, that's a good one though. Hey, credit to him. He played great. That was a fun match, and I love that he can bring it up and we can still banter about it. So exactly. I like that's a good. Some people get a little offended. I'm not one to get offended. If you kick my ass at something, let me see it.
Yeah, show me. Let's laugh about it.
Sorry, I swore.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, I think Lucas right now is like 5. You're at like 2, so you're good. So I kind of saved this one, at least for this crowdsourced ones, for last, because I want to talk more about your dad. What's it like watching your dad play in Elite?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be the same not. Like I said, we grew up, he was a single dad for the most part of my childhood. He got custody of me when I was about 7 and just grew up as kind of a best friend dad situation. And sometimes it doesn't work out well, but I wasn't the best kid as far as, doing school and stuff like that, but it didn't change that we were still friends, right? If he had to, it didn't matter that he had to punish me or he had to tell me, what to do. And at a certain point, he kind of just accepted that maybe I wasn't going to do all the best things that everyone thinks I should do. But that didn't stop him from still being there. And so what that meant is that every sport thing we did, we kind of did together, whether it was like we played in city basketball leagues. I grew up playing every sport with him. We kind of made sacrifices. So we family get together on a Sunday, like, sorry family, we have a basketball game today. Like that was kind of our thing, was always doing that. And we grew up playing other stuff today. So I used to play Mage Knight. I don't know if you're familiar with Warhammer, but Mage Knight's kind of another miniatures game that came out by WizKids. And so we grew up playing stuff like that together, and he would run the tournaments and at a local game shop. And so just kind of grew up with all that stuff as the connection to my dad. So watching him play, and I mean, he's traveled to tournaments that he doesn't even play in to watch me play. So I love that. There's no one I'd rather have there.
That's awesome. I'm pretty sure it was your dad that I saw in 2013 at the Seattle Classic. I mean, it was the only elderly gentleman there, and I don't remember what team he was playing on. But I just remember thinking, like, wow, this guy's like not only still getting after it, but he's pretty dang good. So I've got like at least another 10 years to play myself. So, and every time I would see him, I was like, I'm so glad this guy's still showing up, because like he's obviously fearless. So he's playing against people like Pyan and Ketchum, and I mean he's not bad. And remember one time we were playing, it was round 3, and it was with Gridlock, and I think they knocked us out of the we lost this one, but I was going to throw with somebody on my team, and he threw and tried to counter me, and I just like went over and like instinctively like caught it with my hands, and it made this loud like just cracky noise, and I didn't think about it because I didn't want to show like that hurt my hands at all, but it did. And we just finished that play, and I was like, God dang, like that guy put some mustard on that, and I was just trying to play it off like nothing, like no big deal, but I was like pretty happy that I caught that. But again, it was it just validated again. It's like, okay, clearly still. I mean, I said it 5 years ago, but I'll say it again. I still got another 10 years if this guy's still playing. And then I just recently found out he was her dad. I was like, holy crap, that's cool. I didn't know that. So
yeah, that was a big tournament for them. Round 3 in San Diego last year. They that was Velosa Rapture.
That's right.
Mark Acombe hated that name. He kept making fun of it, calling it whatever else he could think of. Most of them weren't very funny. But they came in fourth in that. I believe they lost to New Breed, and then New Breed ended up taking third. So that was and then a couple of those. Greg was on that team, who's on Reignbros now. I went to high school with Greg, and then Keith, like I said, he was on that team. I met him several years ago through flag football, and he was one of my best friends now. So that's we got knocked out early in that tournament. I was having a blast cheering those guys on.
Nice. Yeah, it's cool to see. I mean, like I said, if he's still playing, then I mean, I've got no excuse. So I know I've already hinted at, I don't want to say retirement, but taking it easy. But then I see him like, I'm crazy. I've got plenty of time. So
how old are you, Steve?
34. I'll be 35 in July.
What are you talking about? 30? I'm 30. I'm not gonna hang it up anytime soon. Come on, man.
It's just old man speak. I feel like I'm 50 though. But I don't know. It's the more I play, the more I feel like I've got plenty of time. So.
You've got a few more miles on you maybe than I do. I don't do any manual labor, and I haven't been playing in the elite scene quite as long.
Yeah, the Army sucked out a couple of years already, but we'll see. I felt pretty good coming out of West round 1. Didn't kill me. It definitely beat the crap out of me, but I was like, I guess if I start practicing and can make more of these tournaments, I'll be fine. So we'll see, man. I'll probably stop just talking like that, though.
Well, I'll just keep giving you crap every time you do.
Yeah, that's also fair. I know one time I was walking by Jim from Rise, and he's all, "Hey, Grandpa," and I was like, "You know that's you, but don't look." But I look anyway. I was like, "Yes." I was like, "Why did you fall for that?" Like, you knew not to do that. And he's like,
I love Jim.
Yeah, he's like, "Yes, I knew you would fall." I was like, I can't help it. I just cannot ignore Jim. I mean, I'm not gonna. I've known this guy for years now. Back when he had blonde frosted tips. I mean, back in the good old days of Rise, and we kind of have like this suicide pact where if one of us goes, we're all going to have to collectively go. Otherwise, we just won't acknowledge that person's retiring. So it'll take a lot for me to finally bail, but it's like I was saying, it's awesome knowing that you're playing with your dad. That's such a cool thing. And I just found out again, like I think it was round 1 when I found out of this year. So I've kind of been in the dark about that one. But let's go ahead and go into your favorite dodgeball memory to date. And with this one, there's no right answer, right? It could be like the first one that comes to mind. But let's just get right into it. Do you have a favorite memory?
I think I do. Yeah, I am. I mean, sorry if I snub any other memories out there, but I would say it had to be 2015 Seattle Classic when I won the Joust. There's a great picture of it. It was kind of our first, like at that time, that was the biggest tournament I'd ever played in, most competitive. I was on the up and coming team, that had formed a couple years before, and we were kind of hitting our peak. And we ended up making the finals and losing. But in the middle of that, right before the semifinal, you finished the Joust from semifinal to final. And one of the guy I beat in the semifinal was one of my teammates who's on Downpour now, Galen Malcolm. And then in the final, I beat a guy named Jordan Williams, who's one of the most gifted athletes in the Northwest. Like Lukas is top of that list too, but Jordan's not far behind as far as a guy who can jump out of the gym, who can get anywhere on the court, a great athlete. And in the Joust, like that athleticism is a bigger piece of the game than maybe it is in just necessarily a regular dodgeball game, right? So that was a tough match, and we flew all over the place. And when I'd won, man, Ricky, my buddy Chris, and Aldo just immediately bolt off the sideline, and just all of them grab me in a big old hug at once.
Nice.
And there's a great picture of it, me in the middle, and just so I would say that's probably like that photo is it's a great callback. I love seeing it to my to that win.
Was this what Britt was referencing when she said that the Joust is cursed? Like if you win the Joust, your team loses,
yeah.
And like Allyn had to go ahead and win the Joust because that was more important.
Yeah. I'd won the Joust twice, and both times lost in the finals of the tournament. So, and then to my knowledge, no one who's ever won the Joust won the tournament. So I lost the Joust at this recent Classic. I went out in right before the semifinal round. I went out to a guy from Canada. Well, actually, it was a little more before that. He creamed me. He was so fast, and I I didn't make the right play, and he's normally I can kind of time it, I can kind of lead the person and get it to where the ball slows him down, but he was so quick, I read it wrong and totally blew by me.
And then you went ahead and won the Seattle Classic, though.
So. Yeah. And then we just smoked everyone.
Do I win the joust, or does my team win?
Poor Britt. She got screwed out of that one.
That was funny. I definitely did some not animosity, but it sounded like she's still a little bit bitter about that one.
Yeah, I think she might be. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, with everything that's going on this year, all the great changes that are happening, and we did kind of expand on the international scene, is there anything that you're looking forward to specifically for this year, like the most, that you're just super excited about?
I'm really excited for a Portland round. Like I said, I don't sleep very well on the road, so if I can get a good night's sleep and a good week's sleep leading up to that, like, I definitely know I can play better than I've played. And just to have it in our city, like to have my grandma came to New Orleans when we played the Nationals there. So that was pretty cool. But to be able to have more of my friends and family come is something I really look forward to. My supervisor at work today was, we had a one-on-one, and he was like, if you have any stuff coming, I was wearing my new USA Dodgeball sweater I got in the mail last week. And he's like, if you have an event coming up, let me know. Like, I want to come check that out. So I told him, yeah, May 19th. And he's like, I'll be there.
That's awesome.
And so just stuff like that. Like I think that's something that could be huge for dodgeball in an area. Like if you can get your friends to come and they can see the game, and then, they're playing the game next week. I grew up with a lot of, very athletic friends. Greg's on Reignbros, one of the guys I went to high school with, and he was hopeless at sports. Like dodgeball is the sport he found that he's really good at. But I have some very athletic friends that I wish I could get to come play.
Gotcha. And you think people being able to see firsthand what you do on these weekends when you go away to play dodgeball is a good way to kind of show them, like, check out this wonderful world of dodgeball?
For some people, well, yeah, for the serious athlete, like the serious competitive athlete, that's definitely what you want to show them. The unfortunate problem of dodgeball is if you bring a serious competitive athlete out to, league night in a rec league, they're going to see dodgeball still as, the movie or the kids game. But if you can bring a serious competitive athlete and show them elite dodgeball, like, I don't see why they wouldn't, or how that would not get their attention. So that's my goal, is to get those people who I know are competitive and want to win and want to see a good heated competitive game. Like, that's what they're going to love. So that's what I want to show them elite before I show them anything else. Like, this is what this sport is when you get to it. You may have to start somewhere else, but
this is what the apex looks like. This is the peak.
Right.
Nice. All right, cool. So that's all the questions I've got, and we'll go ahead and end the interview there. So that was Allyn Thomas from Reignbros, and just like my interview with Kat last week, this one, again, flew right by. Allyn, thank you so much for hopping on and for your patience while I figured out the whole audio mishap, but also for being part of my 20th episode. That's a bit of a milestone for me. I really did not expect to get this far when I first started out back in December. Yeah, it's incredible that 20 episodes have already gone by. So for those of you that listened, I really hope that you enjoyed our conversation as much as I enjoyed having it, and like me, got a bit more insight on what's been going down in the Pacific Northwest through Allyn's perspective. Again, for me, it's just great to be able to venture outside of my comfort zone, outside of the West Arizona region, and get to know people from all over. It's been a true blast. Also, special thank you again to Sergio Leone, Markel Stokes, Joe Colella, and Frankie G. Neto for submitting your questions. They just make these interviews that much more fun and engaging, I feel, especially since I can't think of everything to ask somebody. I really do lean on outside source questions to just make these interviews the most that they can be. So definitely appreciate it, and I'll do my best to give you guys more of a heads up for future interviews. And on that note, feel free to send me your questions, concerns, and feedback anytime. I have, again, had so much fun doing this podcast. Already looking forward to the next 20. Just would like to see where you want me to go and who you want me to talk to, and we'll go from there. So on that note, happy Friday, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next time. Holy
Shame!
Did I get it on the first try? I got it on the first try. I'm getting out of here before something bad happens. I'm out.